You know her. You've seen her. She's the one who's often in the background, not because she has to be, but because she chooses to be. In a world that's addicted to noise, she's the quiet observer. She listens far more than she speaks, and her eyes don't miss a thing. For years, she's been a masterclass in self-control. She has absorbed disrespect with a calm face, tolerated being underestimated, and carried the weight of other people's carelessness without a single complaint. Her silence has been mistaken for weakness, her patience for being a pushover. People have treated her like the stable ground they can build their chaotic lives on, the quiet harbor they can always return to, taking her presence for granted, like the air they breathe. She is what many now call the Sigma female, an independent, introspective soul who walks her own path, often in the shadows of louder personalities. It's not a clinical term, but a modern label for a woman who has spent a lifetime holding back, softening her own edges and dimming her light just to make others feel more comfortable. She has been too kind for too long, offering her energy to people who could never truly appreciate it. But what happens when the quietest person in the room decides she's done being silent? What happens when the dam of self-restraint, built over years of quiet disappointment, finally breaks? What happens when the Sigma woman is done playing nice? It's not some loud explosion. It's not a dramatic declaration of war. It's something far more powerful. It's a quiet, internal shift, a cold, clear final click as a lock turns into place. It's a move from silent endurance to unapologetic, purposeful action. It's the story of a woman who, after years of trusting everyone but herself, finally decides to trust her own soul. This is what happens when a Sigma woman stops holding back. It's not just a change, it's a rebirth. And for anyone who took her for granted, it's the moment they realize they never really knew her at all. Before anyone else can see it, the transformation starts in the quietest place possible, her own mind. There's no fireworks, no sudden meltdown, no dramatic speech, just a subtle, almost invisible shift. It's the weight of years stacked on her shoulders, finally pressing down to the breaking point. For the Sigma woman, this unraveling isn't random. It's the slow, inevitable conclusion of being misunderstood one too many times. Imagine it like a thread pulled loose from a sweater. It starts small, almost unnoticed. A single disappointment, a single moment where she bites her tongue instead of saying what she really thinks, a single instance of being dismissed when she knew she was right. That thread gets tugged again and again. Over time, the whole thing begins to come apart, until she can't pretend it's intact anymore. The final straw is rarely a big, explosive betrayal. It's often something deceptively small, an offhand remark from someone who should have known better, or another day of being treated like she's invisible. But to her, that moment isn't isolated. It's the millionth cut layered on top of years of silent endurance. The whisper rises from within, no more. And that whisper changes everything. No more doesn't mean she lashes out. It doesn't mean she becomes reckless. It means she stops carrying weight that was never hers to carry in the first place. She stops shrinking herself to make other people feel comfortable. She stops twisting her identity into shapes that fit everyone else's idea of who she should be. From the outside, she still seems calm. She still looks like the same woman who smiles politely, listens intently, and doesn't demand the spotlight. But if you look closer, you'll see something different in her eyes, the warmth that used to radiate freely. It's cooling, not gone, just redirected. Instead of being poured into everyone around her, it's being invested back into herself. This unraveling is not destruction, it's liberation. Think of a snake shedding its skin. At first glance it looks painful, even violent, like something is being lost. But what's really happening is growth. The old skin is too tight, it doesn't fit anymore, and once it's gone, she's free to move, to stretch, to exist without constraint. The same thing happens with the Sigma woman. For years, she wore the skin of the nice girl, the one who never said no, the one who played peacemaker, the one who sacrificed her own needs to keep others happy. That skin was never truly hers. It was stitched together from other people's expectations. And now she refuses to wear it another second. What does that look like in real life? It might be as simple as saying, "I'm not explaining myself anymore." She stops giving long-winded justifications for wanting solitude. She no longer apologizes for protecting her time or her energy. When someone tries to guilt her into people-pleasing, she doesn't argue or explain. She just doesn't participate. Her silence isn't compliance anymore, it's defiance. This shift unsettles people. They're so used to her being endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly forgiving. When she suddenly withdraws that energy, it feels like a betrayal to them. But here's the truth. They were never entitled to it in the first place. What they're experiencing is not betrayal, it's the end of an illusion. And this unraveling doesn't make her bitter. If anything, it makes her sharper, clearer, stronger. She stops being a character in other people's chaotic stories and becomes the author of her own. She's not interested in playing the good girl anymore. She's interested in being whole. It's a quiet revolution. There are no loud announcements, no social media posts declaring her new chapter. Just a slow, steady withdrawal of energy from the people and places that drain her. She walks away from the bridges she once built for people who only knew how to burn them. She returns to her own shore, content to be an island, if that's what it takes to finally feel at peace. This is the great unraveling. It's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough, and once it begins, there's no going back. Because once she says no more, the world will finally see a version of her that no one, not even she herself, has fully met yet. For most of her life, the Sigma woman has lived with a quiet, unshakable truth inside her. A deep inner compass that always knew where she was supposed to go. She could feel when someone wasn't genuine, when a situation didn't align, when something in her life was off. But instead of being celebrated for this intuition, she was told she was too sensitive, too judgmental, too cautious. So to survive, she learned to second-guess herself. That's the tragedy of her earlier years. She trusted everyone else more than she trusted herself. She gave weight to voices that didn't deserve it. She looked for approval from people who couldn't even see her value. And every time she ignored her intuition to keep the peace, she betrayed herself just a little bit more. But when she stops holding back, that betrayal ends completely. The very first shift is radical self-trust. And I mean radical. Not casual, not situational, absolute. She goes from doubting her instincts to treating them as sacred. Her inner compass isn't just an opinion anymore. It becomes her North Star. This doesn't look like arrogance. It's not about believing she's better than anyone else. It's about finally realizing that seeking approval from the wrong people is nothing but self-betrayal. Think about it. Why should she hand her power over to people who have proven they can't handle it? Why should her worth be measured by those who can't even see it? When she drops the need for external validation, everything changes. Decisions become cleaner. Her life becomes lighter. She stops waiting for permission to pursue the things that light her up. She no longer explains herself to skeptics, because explanations were never going to convince them anyway. Picture this. A Sigma woman who has always loved something quiet and deeply personal, say restoring ancient books, painting minimalist art, or composing ambient music. For years her family told her it was impractical, that she should chase a safe career, something that looked good on paper. And for years she tried to live in that mold. But she was miserable. When she finally trusts herself, she breaks free. She doesn't hold a press conference about it. She doesn't post a dramatic manifesto online. She just starts walking her path. She quietly leaves behind the safe job and dedicates herself to her real calling. She doesn't beg anyone to understand. She doesn't need their blessing. She simply begins. And here's the beautiful part. Her results become the only explanation she needs. Her actions, her peace, her growth, these speak louder than any justification ever could. Meanwhile, the noise of other people's opinions fades into irrelevance, like static in the background of a song she no longer listens to. Of course, this scares the people who once had influence over her. They're not losing her. They're losing their grip on her. They might call her selfish. They might accuse her of changing, but what they're really witnessing is a woman reclaiming her life. And for her, this reclamation feels like coming home. She realizes that her intuition was never wrong. It was simply drowned out by the voices of others. By returning to it, she rediscovers something she lost years ago. The quiet confidence of knowing she can always rely on herself. This is the cornerstone of every other transformation she goes through. Radical self-trust is the foundation. Once she reclaims it, the game is over. Because when a Sigma woman decides her own voice is the only one that matters, no outside opinion, no empty validation, no shallow approval can ever control her again. For years, the Sigma woman has been an emotional sponge. She walks into a room and immediately feels the tension no one else acknowledges. She notices the shift in someone's tone, the flicker in their eyes, the undercurrent beneath their words. And because she's naturally empathetic, she absorbs it all. This sensitivity is a gift, but in her earlier years, it often felt like a curse. Instead of using her awareness to her advantage, she internalized it. She soaked up everyone else's chaos, their anger, their insecurity, their stress, and carried it around like it was her responsibility. Outwardly, she appeared calm, serene, almost unshakable. But inside, it was a storm. The silence she retreated into wasn't power back then, it was survival. But once she stops holding back, everything changes. She doesn't stop feeling deeply. She learns how to manage those feelings with surgical precision. That's when emotional clarity becomes her superpower. What does that mean? Emotional clarity is the ability to separate what's hers from what isn't. It's the power to pause between a trigger and her response. It's knowing that feeling anger doesn't mean acting out in anger, and feeling hurt doesn't mean shrinking into silence. It's the transformation from being tossed around by her emotions to becoming the captain of her emotional ship. Here's the shift. Instead of being reactive, she becomes intentional. And that shift terrifies people who were used to manipulating her quiet nature. Take the workplace, for example. Picture her sitting in a meeting where a colleague makes a passive-aggressive comment aimed at undermining her. The old Sigma woman might have stayed quiet, stewed in her thoughts, and replayed the moment for days, wondering if she should have spoken up. The transformed Sigma woman handles it differently. She feels the sting because she's human, but she doesn't let it hijack her. She takes a breath, lets the silence stretch for a moment, and then calmly says, "Can you clarify what you meant by that? I want to make sure I understand the tone is neutral. The words are simple, but the impact is massive." That colleague is suddenly forced to confront their own behavior, stripped of the comfort of hiding behind sarcasm or subtle digs. And the entire room realizes something at the same time. She's not a passive target anymore. This emotional clarity extends beyond professional life and into her personal relationships. She no longer swallows her feelings to avoid conflict. Instead, she expresses them with a calm, unapologetic authority that can't be argued with. Imagine a friend who is chronically late, always making her wait. In the past, she would have stayed silent, fumed internally, and written it off as not worth the drama. But the new version of her doesn't dance around it. She simply says, "I feel disrespected when you're late. From now on, if you're more than 15 minutes behind, I'm going to leave." That's not anger. That's not a threat. That's clarity. Delivered without apology, without pleading. Just a statement of fact. And the beauty of it? No one can argue with it because it's not an opinion. It's her boundary, spoken in truth. This kind of clarity makes her nearly impossible to manipulate. People who used to rely on her silence as a shield suddenly find themselves face to face with a woman who sees through their games. When someone tries to bait her into an argument, she doesn't explode. She doesn't crumble. She analyzes. She observes. She decides whether or not the situation even deserves her energy. Sometimes her clarity comes in the form of choosing silence. But now, that silence is active, not passive. Before, silence was a retreat. Now silence is a weapon. A calculated pause that forces others to sit with their own discomfort while she stays unshaken. The beauty of emotional clarity is that it transforms her inner world too. She no longer feels drained from carrying emotions that weren't hers to begin with. She can sit in her own feelings without being controlled by them. If she's sad, she allows herself to feel it. If she's angry, she acknowledges it, but she doesn't drown in those states. They pass through her like storms over the ocean, leaving her calm and steady in their wake. And here's the kicker. This clarity is magnetic. People around her notice the shift. They can't quite put their finger on it, but they feel the difference. She exudes a kind of emotional stability that makes others instinctively trust her, even when they don't understand why. She becomes the calm eye of the storm in chaotic environments, the person whose presence quietly commands respect without needing to demand it. For her, this mastery of emotions is liberation. It's the freedom to feel everything without being consumed by it. It's the ability to engage with people authentically, without the fear of being overwhelmed or used. It's the power to respond instead of react. When people think of transformation, they often picture explosions, shouting matches, slammed doors, dramatic "I'm done" speeches. But that's not how the Sigma woman moves when she stops holding back. She doesn't explode, she sharpens. What she enters into is something far more terrifying for anyone who underestimated her: warrior mode. Now let's be clear, this isn't warrior mode in the way most people imagine. She's not out there swinging wildly at every obstacle or plotting revenge against those who wronged her. That would require her to give away energy she no longer owes anyone. No, her warrior mode is precise, quiet, and disciplined. It's less about conquering others and more about mastering herself. For years, so much of her strength was spent on survival, keeping her head above water while tolerating the negativity, demands, and dysfunction of others. All that energy was dissipated in silence, in enduring, in waiting. But now she redirects it. Every ounce of that quiet endurance becomes fuel for focused, deliberate creation. The difference is startling. People expect drama, but instead they get detachment. Instead of arguing, she withdraws. Instead of explaining, she acts. Instead of proving, she builds. And she builds in silence. Think of it this way. A woman who used to waste nights ruminating over why someone treated her badly now spends those same hours sketching out her business plan. The one who used to say yes to social invitations she didn't care for now uses that time to master a skill that lights her up. She doesn't brag about it. She doesn't post inspirational quotes announcing her grind. She just does the work, quietly, relentlessly. This is why her warrior mode confuses people. They look for the fireworks of a breakdown, but instead find absence. They notice she's no longer at the gatherings, no longer answering every call, no longer accessible on demand. And while they whisper that she's changed or pulled away, she's busy carving out a life built on her own terms. The discipline of this mode is shocking. She starts waking earlier, not because it's trendy, but because those quiet hours belong entirely to her. She cuts out distractions with ruthless precision. Toxic people, gone. Pointless arguments, not worth her breath. Aimless scrolling and wasting energy on what doesn't feed her, eliminated. Every move she makes is intentional. Like a warrior preparing for battle, she strips away excess weight and unnecessary noise until what's left is pure focus. Her actions are lean, sharp, and consistent, and what she creates from that space is powerful. It could be a business she's been dreaming of, but never had the confidence to launch. It could be a book she's been writing quietly at night. It could be the rebuilding of her physical health, finally dedicating herself to the body she neglected while taking care of everyone else. Whatever it is, she attacks it with a steady, unshakable rhythm, not frenzied, not rushed, steady, unstoppable. And here's the thing most people don't realize about warrior mode. It's not about aggression. It's about sovereignty. She is no longer orbiting other people's dysfunction, being pulled in every direction. She becomes her own center of gravity, and everything in her life begins to align around that center. Of course, not everyone applauds this shift. Some people, especially those who once fed off her compliance, find her new discipline threatening. They'll say things like, "She's cold now," or "She's obsessed with herself." But let's call that what it is: projection. What they're really experiencing is the discomfort of losing access to her energy, her refusal to explain herself, her decision to pull her focus inward. It exposes the ways they once exploited her patience. But she doesn't waste time defending herself anymore. She doesn't care if they misunderstand. That's part of the warrior code. Not every battle deserves a response. Some opponents defeat themselves just by being ignored. Inside, this mode feels like fire. Not a wildfire, reckless and destructive, but a controlled burn. She finally sees what she's capable of when she stops pouring her strength into everyone else's needs. And it's exhilarating. For the first time, her energy is building instead of leaking. Her confidence compounds. Her results stack. She's no longer just surviving, she's evolving. And the most dangerous part, she's doing it quietly. No announcement, no permission, no audience required. Just discipline, intention, and relentless forward motion. This is the warrior mode of the Sigma woman, not the roar of a fighter, but the silence of someone who knows she can't be stopped. When a Sigma woman stops holding back, something radical happens. She learns the art of saying no without guilt, without hesitation, and without apology. And that's where we land at point 4, her boundaries. For years, her boundaries were soft, not because she didn't know what they were, but because she was trained, by culture, by family, by past relationships, to bend them in the name of keeping the peace. She would tolerate lateness, endure disrespect, absorb the emotional storms of others, all because it was easier than confrontation. But there comes a breaking point. One day she realizes that every time she allows someone to trample her limits, she is shrinking. She is handing away pieces of herself. And when she stops holding back, she stops doing that. Her boundaries transform into fortresses, not flimsy walls that crumble under pressure, but fortified gates with selective entry. She decides who gets access and under what conditions, and she does so without shame. That's what people misunderstand. Boundaries are not walls to keep everyone out. They are doors with locks, keys, and conditions. Picture this: a friend who only calls when they need something. In the past, she'd pick up, smile, help, and hang up, then feel drained. The new her? She lets the phone ring. Maybe she sends a short text. "I'm not available right now." That's it. No excuse. No elaborate story to justify her absence. She's not rejecting the person. She's protecting her energy. Or imagine a partner who expects her to be endlessly accommodating. Before, she'd bend, adjust, compromise until she was hollow. Now, she calmly states, "This is what I need. If you can't provide it, that's okay, but I won't pretend I'm fine without it." That statement isn't delivered with anger. It's delivered with calm authority, the kind that doesn't invite debate. These boundaries shock people who once benefited from her flexibility. They call her difficult or selfish. But deep down, even her critics respect it, because secretly, everyone admires a person who knows their worth. Here's the beauty. Once her boundaries are fortified, something magnetic happens. This leads us to point 5. She starts attracting higher caliber connections. Why? Because boundaries act like filters. The people who are only there to take, drain, or exploit fall away. They don't even bother trying because they sense they can't get past the gate, and the ones who remain, the ones who respect her boundaries, are a different breed. Suddenly, she's surrounded not by people who tolerate her, but by people who celebrate her, not by people who demand her silence, but by people who crave her voice, not by energy vampires, but by allies, equals, and kindred spirits. Think of it like leveling up in a game. She once played in a chaotic, low-level arena where toxicity thrived. But when she stopped holding back, she upgraded her environment, and only those strong enough, self-aware enough, and intentional enough could meet her there. Let's put this in real life. Imagine she was in a relationship with someone who constantly tested her patience, disrespected her time, or diminished her dreams. In the past, she'd rationalize it. They'll change. Maybe I'm expecting too much, but with her new boundaries. That relationship doesn't survive. She doesn't fight. She doesn't beg, she simply leaves. And by walking away, she creates space. Space that almost always gets filled by someone better. Someone who doesn't just tolerate her independence, but admires it. Someone who doesn't see her boundaries as obstacles, but as proof of her value. The same thing happens with friendships. Shallow acquaintances fade out, but then, slowly, the real ones start appearing. The friends who check in without needing something. The friends who respect her time. The friends who don't get offended when she says no, because they understand that a no from her means her eventual yes is genuine. And this doesn't just apply to personal life. Professionally, her higher caliber connections start surfacing too. She no longer entertains jobs or bosses that disrespect her value. She seeks and lands roles, clients or partners who actually see her, who treat her as an equal, not as someone to be used. Her standards rise, and the universe matches them. Here's the paradox. By saying no more often, she opens herself to deeper yes moments. Her boundaries don't limit her, they expand her life. She's no longer exhausted by draining relationships, so she has energy to invest in the right ones. She's no longer distracted by petty conflicts, so she has focus for meaningful pursuits. Of course, this evolution isn't all roses. It comes with loneliness at first. When she enforces her fortress-like boundaries, some people vanish. Old circles dissolve. The silence that follows can feel heavy, but she learns something critical in that quiet. Loneliness isn't the same as emptiness. It's a clearing, a sacred space where new, higher caliber connections are preparing to enter. And when they do, the difference is night and day. These new people don't fear her silence. They honor it. They don't drain her. They energize her. They don't demand she shrink. They marvel as she expands. That's the reward of a Sigma woman who stops holding back. She no longer wastes her fire lighting up people who refuse to see it. Instead, she becomes a beacon for those who already carry their own flame. Her boundaries protect her. Her boundaries refine her world. And because of them, she stops attracting chaos and starts attracting alignment. That's the shift. And it's only the beginning. When a Sigma woman stops holding back, the energy that once leaked out through silence, through people-pleasing, through tolerating nonsense, finally has somewhere else to go. And where it goes is breathtaking. It flows straight into creativity. See, she was always a creative force, but most of her power was trapped. It was locked behind self-doubt, obligations, and distractions. Her imagination sat quietly in the corner, waiting for her to give it oxygen. But when she stops pouring her energy into everyone else's chaos, suddenly she has fuel. And that fuel becomes art, ideas, solutions, and innovations that the world didn't see coming. Think about it. All those sleepless nights she used to spend overthinking conversations. They become writing sessions. All that emotional stamina she used to spend soothing other people's drama. She channels it into painting, designing, building, coding, or composing. The very energy that once drained her now transforms into something generative. This is why Sigma women are often underestimated. People assume her silence means passivity, but silence is deceptive. It's a reservoir. It's potential energy, waiting for the moment it can spill into creation. And when it does, it feels explosive, like someone who's been holding back for years, finally opening the floodgates. Her creativity doesn't have to be traditional art either. It could be entrepreneurial. She might build a business that reflects her independence and vision. It could be intellectual, drafting a book, writing poetry, crafting essays that shake the table. It could even be problem-solving, inventing new ways to navigate systems that others take for granted. What makes her creativity different is the purity behind it. She's not creating to please anyone. She's not performing for validation. She creates because she has to. It's how she breathes. And because it's authentic, her work carries a weight that can't be faked. People begin to notice. Her friends, her colleagues, her community. They start to feel the power of what she's building. And often they're stunned because she kept it hidden for so long. One day she was quiet, blending into the background. The next, she's producing something so raw, so brilliant, that it commands attention. And here's the kicker. The more she creates, the stronger she gets. Creativity becomes her therapy, her rebellion, and her declaration of existence all at once. It heals her, empowers her, and sets her apart. This is the transformation. She stops being a silent witness to the world and becomes an architect of it. For most of her life, silence was her retreat. The Sigma woman used it to protect herself, to avoid fights, to escape rooms filled with egos louder than reason. People mistook it for weakness. They thought her silence meant surrender, indifference, or invisibility. But when she stops holding back, her relationship with silence changes forever. It no longer shields her. It sharpens her. Her silence becomes deliberate, intentional, and weaponized. It's no longer about hiding. It's about commanding. Picture this: a heated argument in a workplace meeting. Voices clash, egos rise, everyone talks over each other. The old Sigma woman would have sunk into her chair, letting the noise swallow her. The new Sigma woman. She sits still. She watches. She listens. She lets the chaos burn itself out. And then, when the dust settles, her silence is the loudest thing in the room. That's the power shift. Her silence makes people uncomfortable, not because it's empty, but because it's full of composure, clarity, and unspoken authority. When she finally chooses to speak, people listen because they know she doesn't waste words. Every sentence hits like a carefully placed strike, not a random swing. She also learns how silence can dismantle manipulation. The friend who tries to guilt-trip her, met with silence. The co-worker fishing for drama. Silence. The partner throwing words like daggers to provoke her. Still silence. And that silence cuts deeper than any argument, because manipulators thrive on reaction, and she's not giving them that luxury anymore. This doesn't mean she becomes mute or passive. Quite the opposite. She learns to use silence as strategy. She can let someone hang in the discomfort of their own words until they expose themselves. She can turn silence into a mirror, reflecting back the energy others throw at her. And in a culture addicted to noise, constant chatter, constant opinions, her quiet becomes rare, magnetic, even intimidating. Silence also becomes her creative ground. In moments where most people distract themselves with endless scrolling, she uses quiet to think, to plan, to build. Her silence isn't empty, it's fertile. It's where her next move is born. Here's the irony. The very thing people used to dismiss her for now becomes her most powerful tool. They used to think, she's too quiet. Now they're wondering, what is she thinking? They start to respect her silence, maybe even fear it, because it has weight. In relationships, this transformation is profound. She doesn't rush to fill awkward pauses with nervous words. She lets silence sit, and that presence alone demands truth. She doesn't argue to prove her point. Her stillness says more than shouting ever could. When the Sigma woman stops holding back, her silence no longer hides her. It crowns her. It becomes her strategy, her armor, her influence. And the world learns a brutal lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous sound is no sound at all. For the Sigma woman, ambition was always there. It just wasn't always visible. She carried dreams in the quiet corners of her heart, but those dreams often took a backseat to survival, to keeping the peace, to shrinking herself so others could feel bigger. Her ambition got buried under obligations, distractions, and the exhausting act of being the dependable one. But when she stops holding back, her ambition rises from the ashes. And it doesn't rise like a flashy firework. It rises like the slow, steady, unstoppable force of the tide. This ambition isn't fueled by ego or competition. It's not about impressing anyone or outshining anyone. Her ambition is deeply personal. It's about redemption. She wants to redeem every moment she was underestimated, every time someone told her she wasn't enough, every year she wasted dimming her light to make others comfortable. Her ambition becomes a sacred vow to herself. I will not let my story end in silence. And here's the game changer. Her ambition is no longer scattered. It's precise, laser-focused, and disciplined. She stops chasing what others told her mattered, money, status, applause, and pours her energy into building a life that feels like hers. For one Sigma woman, that might mean finally starting the business she sketched out in secret journals years ago. For another, it might mean publishing the book that lived in her mind since childhood. For another, it might mean quietly becoming the best in her field, not to prove anything to others, but to prove everything to herself. Her ambition is not performative. She doesn't post her progress online to collect claps. She doesn't beg for recognition. She works in silence, and the results speak for her. That's the beauty of her evolution. Her ambition isn't loud, but it's relentless. And people start to notice. The same people who once overlooked her suddenly find themselves watching her from the sidelines, wondering how she became so unstoppable. They may whisper that she's changed. They're right. She has. But what they don't understand is that she didn't become someone new. She became who she was always meant to be. Her ambition becomes alchemy. It turns her pain into power, her silence into strategy, her past into a foundation for a future only she can build. And this leads us to the heart of her story. So what happens when a Sigma woman stops holding back? She transforms. Not with fireworks, not with screaming, not with drama, but with clarity, precision, and unshakable resolve. She sheds the skin of expectations, trusts herself radically, masters emotional clarity, and moves with the discipline of a warrior. She builds boundaries that no one can cross, trims away dead weight from her social circle, and lets her authenticity blaze like a flame no one can dim. Her silence becomes her sharpest weapon, and her ambition becomes the redemption of her entire journey. She doesn't become a different person. She becomes herself, the self she was forced to hide for years. The woman who emerges is not the quiet shadow others thought they knew. She is an architect of her own destiny, a force that commands respect without asking for it. If this journey resonates with you, if you feel pieces of your own life reflected in her story, then know this: you're not alone. Maybe you're just starting to set your first boundaries. Maybe you're already in the middle of shedding old expectations. Or maybe you're stepping into your own ambition right now. Wherever you are, your story matters. So share it. Drop your experiences in the comments. Let other women see that they're not the only ones going through this transformation. Your words could be the spark that ignites someone else's quiet revolution. And if you found strength in this message, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more. This is just the beginning. Together, we're building a community where silence becomes power, ambition becomes redemption, and authenticity becomes the ultimate rebellion. Because when a Sigma woman finally stops holding back, the world doesn't just see her. The world is changed by her.